Marco Polo wrote that a Mongol rider, in an emergency, could nick a vein in his horse's neck, drink straight from it, reseal the wound, and keep riding, and do that for 10 days straight without stopping for food. 10 days. On horse blood. That single detail has turned the Mongol army into the unofficial mascot of every ancestral, meat-only diet video on the internet. Lean, ferocious, conquering half the known world on nothing but animal protein. It's a great story. It's also not quite true. The real Mongol diet wasn't meat only. It was meat and dairy engineered with a precision that puts most modern primal diet trends to shame. And the actual science behind why it kept warriors lean has almost nothing to do with what people online think it does. Let's correct the headline first, because it matters. Mongol warriors absolutely ate a lot of meat. Horse, mutton, goat, beef, whatever the herd or the hunt provided. But the actual backbone of the daily Mongol diet was dairy, not meat. Historians who study Mongol food culture are blunt about this. Dairy gave Mongol society a portable, long-lasting food source that meat alone couldn't provide on the move, especially since fresh meat from a slaughtered animal didn't make economic sense to waste on a single meal when that same animal could keep producing milk for years. So the honest version of the headline is meat and dairy diet, not meat only. But here's why the myth persists. When modern carnivore diet and keto communities go looking for a historical mascot, fierce nomadic warriors who conquered the known world eating almost zero plants is a much better story than fierce nomadic warriors who also drank a lot of fermented yogurt. The real diet got flattened down to fit a modern narrative. What actually impresses nutrition scientists about the Mongol diet isn't its purity, it's its logistics. These were full-time, mobile armies that needed calorie-dense, shelf-stable food that wouldn't spoil for months, carried by animals that were also their transport, their weapons platform, and their dairy farm simultaneously. Take borts, strips of meat air-dried until they could be pounded into a fine powder and packed into a sealed pouch made from an animal's stomach or bladder. One container could feed a warrior for months. Add hot water, and it rehydrated into an instant, high-protein stew. That's not primitive. That's functionally a dehydrated ration. The same basic engineering logic behind modern military MREs and protein powder, built roughly 8 centuries before either existed. Then there's curet, dried curds, boiled and dehydrated until they were nearly stone. Riders sucked on them like hard candy on the march, or dissolved them in water for an instant protein drink. Slow release, shelf-stable, and nearly indestructible. This wasn't a society eating whatever was lying around. It was a society that had solved food logistics for a mobile army centuries before field ration was a military term. Nothing on the animal went to waste either. Liver, heart, tongue, marrow, even bones cracked open for the fat inside. All of it got boiled and eaten. That sounds extreme until you realize meats are some of the most nutrient-dense food on the planet, packed with iron, B vitamins, and micronutrients that muscle meat alone doesn't supply in the same concentration. Modern nutrition science has spent the last decade rediscovering offal as a superfood category. The Mongols weren't being thrifty out of necessity alone. They were accidentally eating closer to a complete nutritional profile than a diet of pure steak would have given them. This is also where the diet stopped being a curiosity and started being a military weapon. Settled agricultural civilizations of the same era, the ones the Mongols were busy conquering, were frequently grain-dependent, and grain-heavy diets in pre-modern societies were notoriously linked to seasonal malnutrition, especially among common soldiers and peasants levied into armies. A force that's protein-replete, micronutrient-dense, and capable of sustaining itself for weeks without resupply has a brutal physical edge over one running on thin gruel. Historians studying Mongol military success increasingly treat the diet not as a footnote, but as logistical infrastructure, arguably as important to the empire's expansion as the horses themselves. Here's a detail that gets skipped constantly. A large share of Mongol fighters were almost certainly lactose intolerant. Drinking large quantities of fresh milk should have been a digestive disaster. The fix was arag, fermented mare's milk, churned for hours until natural fermentation broke the lactose down almost entirely, leaving a mildly alcoholic, faintly fizzy drink that was safe to drink in volume even for people who couldn't tolerate fresh milk. It functioned as the Mongol army's hydration source, mild stimulant, and dietary staple all at once. Described by some modern writers as something close to the era's version of an energy drink. And there's a real nutritional reason. Fermented mare's milk mattered beyond digestion. Mare's milk contains dramatically more vitamin C than cow's milk. Some lab analyses have measured it at well over 100 times higher. For an army camped for months at a stretch on the steppe, far from any fruit or vegetable, with grain agriculture barely viable on Mongolian land. That's not a minor detail. It's the difference between a force that stays healthy on campaign and one that slowly succumbs to scurvy. Mongol armies didn't know what vitamin C was. They just knew the white drink kept people functional and kept reaching for it. Back to that horse blood detail, because it's not as shocking once you understand the logic. This wasn't routine eating. It was an emergency rations protocol for when water and food ran out mid-campaign. A small, controlled draw from a horse's vein, mixed with milk or water to make it palatable, gave a starving or dehydrated rider iron, protein, and fluid without having to slaughter the animal he depended on for transport and survival. The horse recovered. The rider kept moving. It's gruesome by modern standards, but it's also a remarkably efficient survival hack, getting usable nutrition out of a living resource without destroying it. So here's the real answer to the headline, and it's less exciting than ancient carnivore secret, but far more useful. Mongol warriors stayed lean for 3 overlapping reasons, and diet was only one of them. First, energy output was extreme. These were men riding dozens of miles a day for months, on campaigns that mixed long aerobic stretches in the saddle with violent bursts of close combat. No diet trend on Earth makes you lean by itself. A sustained, brutal caloric deficit relative to intake does that, and the Mongol military lifestyle produced exactly that kind of deficit almost automatically. Second, their actual macronutrient mix, high protein, moderate fat, very low carbohydrate, lines up with what modern research consistently shows about satiety. Protein is the most filling macronutrient per calorie, and diets built around dense, slow-digesting protein and fat sources like borts and curet don't trigger the same blood sugar swings and rebound hunger that a grain-heavy diet does. You eat less without trying to, because you're simply not as hungry between meals. Third, this wasn't a zero-carb, zero-plant diet in practice. When Mongol forces conquered settled territory, tribute and looted grain entered the supply chain. Genghis Khan's own historians note the diet was not gourmet, and Mongol households back home weren't living some hyper-restrictive macro-tract lifestyle. They ate what their herds and circumstances provided. So modern science doesn't actually validate. Eat only meat and you'll get lean like a Mongol warrior. It validates something more specific: extreme energy expenditure, paired with a high-protein, high-satiety, low-processed carbohydrate diet, paired with smart food engineering to survive long stretches without fresh produce. Strip out the constant riding and combat, and the same diet on a sedentary modern body wouldn't produce a Mongol warrior. It would just produce someone eating a lot of jerky and yogurt. So next time someone tells you the secret to ancient warrior leanness was just eat meat, you can tell the real secret was a fermented dairy supply chain solving a vitamin deficiency, a dehydrated ration system solving a logistics problem, and several hours a day in the saddle solving the part everyone conveniently leaves out of the headline. If you want more ancient diets put through an actual science check instead of a carnivore diet highlight reel, subscribe. Because almost none of these old secrets turn out to be quite as simple as the thumbnail makes them look.